In 1918, the coal town of Mattawan, West Virginia, children skipped school to gather fallen coal along the railroad tracks. Winter came early that year, and most miner families had no money left after the influenza epidemic swept through the camps. 22-year-old school teacher Eleanor Price noticed half her students arriving barefoot with coal dust rubbed inside their gloves to keep their hands warm. So every Thursday after lessons, she marched her class down the frozen Tug Fork River, carrying burlap sacks and lanterns. The children picked loose coal that spilled from passing trains, while Eleanor stood watch for railroad guards. The coal companies called it stealing. Eleanor called it survival. By Christmas, her students had gathered nearly 3 tons of scattered coal for widows and sick families across the camp. One night, a railroad officer caught the children loading sacks onto a mule cart. Instead of arresting them, he quietly handed Eleanor his own lunch pail filled with biscuits and apples. Years later, one of her students became a union organizer and said, "Miss Price taught us poor people survive by carrying each other." Eleanor stayed in the mountains until her death in 1964 and never missed a single winter with her students. The Prairie Families of Nebraska, 1933. During the worst years of the Great Depression, farming families across Nebraska struggled against drought, debt, and collapsing crop prices that pushed many rural households to the edge of survival. Dry winds swept across the prairie, while failing harvests left barns nearly empty, and families uncertain how they would survive another season. The Whitaker family lived on a small farm outside Grand Island, where years of poor crops forced them to depend almost entirely on gardens, livestock, and constant repair work to survive. Henry Whitaker fixed broken wagon wheels, patched fences, and traded labor with neighbors, while his wife Clara sewed clothing from feed sacks and preserved every vegetable the family could grow. Children worked from an early age alongside their parents. Boys hauled water and repaired chicken coops, while girls gathered eggs, canned vegetables, and helped wash clothes by hand beside large metal tubs. Meals were simple: potatoes, cornbread, beans, eggs, and whatever meat could occasionally be hunted or traded for nearby. Nothing around the farm was wasted because replacing supplies had become nearly impossible. Despite the hardship, prairie communities remained closely connected. Families shared seed, tools, livestock feed, and labor during planting and harvest seasons. Churches and neighbors quietly helped struggling households survive winters when money disappeared completely. One Nebraska farmer later remembered, "The prairie could be unforgiving, but people learned early that surviving hard times meant surviving them together. There is a weight in the eyes of children from the late 1930s that you rarely see today. Sitting on the porch of a cabin that the wind seems to whistle through, these kids carry the maturity of adults. They know the exact price of a bag of beans. They know why their father's shoulders are slumped when he walks home from the dam project. Barefoot and dressed in flour sack clothes, they aren't asking for toys or gadgets. They are looking straight into the lens of history, challenging us to remember what it means to be truly poor. John, the oldest, once said, 'We were poor, but we were warm, and we were together.' That togetherness was their only shield against a world that had seemingly forgotten them. In an age of endless more, these children remind us that enough is a luxury. They lived through the hardest years and came out the other side with a bond that could never be broken by a bank or a drought. Does your family have a story of surviving the hard years together? March 1939, Western North Carolina. Deep in the Appalachian Mountains, a narrow wooden bridge stretched across the Tuckasegee Creek, connecting scattered families to schools, mills, churches, and neighboring communities. During the difficult years of the Great Depression, even a simple bridge could mean the difference between isolation and opportunity. The bridge had been built several years earlier by local resident Joe Crawford, a hard-working farmer and carpenter who stepped forward after flooding destroyed the original county crossing. With public funds scarce and repairs delayed, he gathered timber, tools, and help from neighbors to create a replacement that kept the valley connected. To cover maintenance costs, a small collection box stood beside the bridge. Travelers often dropped a penny or two into the can before crossing. School children walked over it each morning. Workers used it to reach nearby mills, and families relied on it for trips into town. Though modest in appearance, the bridge became an essential part of daily life. Photographs from the era captured scenes of buses, pedestrians, and wagons moving across the structure, illustrating how rural communities survived through cooperation and determination. Residents understood that maintaining the bridge was a shared responsibility, and many contributed whatever they could. Eventually, government programs funded a stronger replacement crossing, but the original bridge remained remembered as a symbol of local initiative and resilience. For years, it served as more than a route across a creek. It represented a community refusing to let hardship cut them off from one another. Sometimes the most important landmarks are built not by governments, but by neighbors helping neighbors. The Soup Pot Church, Harlan County, Kentucky, 1933. In Harlan, the church closed because the preacher left to find work. The building stayed empty until winter hit hard. 3 widows, May, Bess, and Cora, rolled 2 giant washpots into the yard, built fires underneath, and started soup with nothing but water, potatoes, and wild onions. They hung a sign on the door, "Come hungry, leave prayed for." Miners brought a carrot, a bone, a handful of beans. Every noon the pots bubbled. People ate first, then sang because there was no sermon left. By Easter 1934, that church had fed over 4,000 bowls and never took a single offering. The county clerk wrote in his log, "Church reopened by soup." In the humid summer of 1905, the swamps of southern Louisiana were alive with cicadas and the chatter of frogs. The Dubois family of French Creole descent lived in a small, stilted cabin above the bayou. 12-year-old Marcel Dubois helped his parents with fishing, cooking, and caring for his younger siblings. One afternoon, a sudden flash flood threatened to sweep away the family's small rowboat and a neighbor's children playing nearby. Marcel grabbed 2 younger children and led them to higher ground, using nearby cypress trees as shelter from the rising waters. He then helped gather livestock and secure possessions, ensuring no one was harmed. Though newspapers never recorded the incident, the story became a part of the Dubois family legacy. Marcel's courage and quick thinking reinforced the bonds within the community and demonstrated the quiet heroism children often exhibited in rural, isolated areas. The Scrip Marbles, Wise County, Virginia, 1934. When the company store closed in Wise County, families were left with tin coins called scrip worthless everywhere, except the store that no longer existed. Kids in the camp did not cry about it. They took those brass scrip pieces out into the dirt street and started playing marbles. Click, clack, all summer long. One boy, Carl, won 47 pieces. He strung them on a wire and hung them on his porch like wind chimes. When the wind blew, the whole hollow heard the sound of money that could not buy bread, but could buy a game. Years later, men would say, "That was the summer we finally got our money's worth." Oklahoma, 1935. The wind had a way of finding its way through every crack in the boards, bringing with it the smell of dust and despair. 12-year-old Tommy Carter watched his mother tie a flour sack over her hair before stepping outside to feed the chickens, though half of them had perished in last week's storm. His father had been studying the truck all morning, tightening bolts, checking the patched tires. Word had come from a cousin in Bakersfield. There was work picking fruit if you could make it there. They had little more than a few blankets, a coffee tin of coins, and the hope that the road west would offer more than the barren, cracked earth they were leaving behind. Tommy climbed onto the truck bed with his younger sister, clutching the family's last quilt, stitched by their grandmother before she passed. As the engine coughed to life, their farmhouse, leaning, weather-beaten, and stubborn, grew smaller in the distance. The journey would take weeks through heat, hunger, and the endless rumble of wheels on dirt. But in that moment, as the wind whipped past, Tommy allowed himself to imagine green fields heavy with fruit and a table that never sat empty. The 3 sisters who carried a piano. 17 miles. So their mother could die at home, Oregon, 1903, October 1903, Siskiyou Mountains, Oregon. Ma Ellie Cooper, 61, was dying of consumption, in hospital in Medford. Said, "Want to hear my girls play Blessed Assurance one more time, at home." Home was 17 miles up a mule trail, Applegate Valley, no wagon road. Sisters, May 19th, Ruth 17th, Ann 14th. They had an upright piano, 600 pounds. Doctor said, impossible. They hired 2 mules. Mules refused after mile 3, too steep. The girls sent the mules back, cut 8 poles, made a litter, took turns, 2 carrying, 1 ahead clearing brush. 17 miles, 4 days, snow on day 3, slept under the piano. Got it home October 29th, set it in the parlor, tuned it with a kitchen knife, played for Ma October 30th. She died November 1st. Neighbors came for the funeral, saw the mud on the piano legs. Nobody asked how it got there. Piano is still in that cabin. Cooper family still owns it. Could you carry the weight of your neighbors' lives up a muddy mountain road for barely $1? For the women of Quicksand, Kentucky, this was the daily trek of survival. Before the sun even touched the ridges, they were already moving, hauling heavy tubs of laundry down toward town, only to return at dusk with the bone-crushing weight of wet clothing and soap buckets. This image captures the raw reality of the 1930s, a generation of women who were the literal pillars of their community. Their backs were bent, but their resolve was as solid as the rocky soil they walked on. There were no shortcuts in the Appalachians. There was only the long, steep climb toward a rent payment that never got any easier. Every step was a silent prayer for endurance, a battle fought against gravity and poverty. They were the architects of a resilience that statistics can't capture, turning a simple chore into a lifeline for their children. When you look at them, you see the heartbeat of a forgotten era, a reminder that the hardest work is often the quietest, and the steepest hills are climbed by those who have no other choice. The school lunch pail, 1936, Dalhart, Texas. 12-year-old Ruthie Mae Carter walked 2 miles to the WPA school in Dalhart every day, through dust that turned her hair white by the time she got there. She carried a lard pail for lunch. Most days it was empty. Her teacher, Miss Evelyn, noticed. Miss Evelyn brought an extra biscuit every day and slipped it into Ruthie's pail when she wasn't looking. In March 1936, the school started a hot lunch program, 1 cent a day. Ruthie's family had no pennies. She sat outside on the steps while the other children ate beans and cornbread inside. She pretended she wasn't hungry. One day, Miss Evelyn called her in anyway and set a bowl in front of her. Ruthie said, "I can't pay." Miss Evelyn said, "You already paid. You help me sweep the floor every afternoon. That's a penny's worth." Ruthie ate. She ate slowly so it would last. It was the first hot food she had in weeks. From then on, Ruthie swept the floor every day without being asked. She also started bringing her 6-year-old brother, Tommy, who was too young for school. She would split her bowl with him under the stairs. Miss Evelyn pretended not to see. In May, the family left for California. On the last day, Ruthie left her lard pail on Miss Evelyn's desk. Inside was a note written in pencil. "Thank you for the beans. I will pay you back." 22 years later, in 1958, Ruthie, now a nurse in Bakersfield, drove back to Dalhart. She found Miss Evelyn retired and living alone. Ruthie brought her a grocery bag full of food and a new lunch pail. She said, "I'm paying you back." Miss Evelyn cried and said, "You paid me back the day you shared with your brother." The House That Traveled, Mississippi, 1909. In 1909, a family living beside the Mississippi River faced an impossible choice. The river was slowly eating their land. Every year, the water came closer. Their house was strong, but the ground beneath it was disappearing. The father, Thomas Reed, refused to abandon the home he built. He gathered neighbors and designed a solution. Using logs, ropes, and a team of horses, they slowly moved the entire wooden house uphill. Not piece by piece, the entire structure. For 3 days, the house traveled across the field. Children watched from windows as their home moved like a giant wooden wagon. The plan succeeded. The family lived there for another 30 years. Visitors later came just to see the house that had crossed a field without being taken apart. Locals called it the Walking House. In the winter of 1894, the small Appalachian town of Harlan, Kentucky, was blanketed by snow and the smoke of coal furnaces. Life revolved around the mines, and children often shared the burdens of labor with their parents. Among them was 13-year-old Clara Jenkins, the daughter of a miner who had fallen ill with pneumonia. Clara spent her mornings delivering firewood and water to neighbors, and her afternoons helping her younger siblings with schoolwork and chores. One night, a sudden mine cave-in trapped several miners underground. Panic gripped the town as families waited for news. Clara, knowing the tunnel's layout from helping her father in better days, ran to the mine entrance, carrying lanterns and ropes. She guided rescuers to a hidden shaft opening that had been overlooked, allowing trapped miners to climb to safety, exhausted and covered in coal dust. She helped comfort families while the last miners were extracted. Though official records did not mention her, Clara became a quiet hero in Harlan. The miners and townsfolk celebrated her courage in private gatherings, retelling the story to children as a lesson in bravery and quick thinking. She continued helping her community throughout harsh winters, showing that even young hands could make the difference between life and death in the unforgiving Appalachian hills. Clara Jenkins's story reflects the overlooked heroism of children in industrial and rural communities. In towns where danger was a daily companion and survival demanded cooperation, her courage and initiative left a lasting mark on her community, demonstrating that resilience and bravery often appear in the youngest and most unexpected members of society. February 11, 1937, in the Ozark Mountains, Arkansas. The Harris family had lived in this cave since 1935. The bank took their farm. The cave was dry, 58 degrees year-round, and free. William Harris, 36, built the rock fireplace and shelves. His wife Martha, 33, cooked on it. Their children were John, 10, Mary, 8, Clara, 6, Paul, 12, and baby Ruth asleep on the quilt. The lantern was kerosene. The shelves held beans, flour, and lard. The quilt on the wall was from Martha's mother. The wood was cut by the boys. William worked on the WPA road crew for $21 a month. Martha took in laundry. They lived here until 1939 when William got a job at the dam. Paul died in Korea in 1951. John kept this photo. He said, "We were poor, but we were warm, and we were together." The cave is on private land now. The fireplace is still there. The ranch cook who ended a feud. Montana, 1889. For years, two neighboring cattle ranches near Miles City, Montana, argued over grazing rights. Fences were cut, livestock disappeared, tempers ran high. Many feared the dispute would eventually turn deadly. Caught in the middle was ranch cook Maggie O'Connor. Every day she fed cowboys from both outfits whenever they passed through. Unlike the ranch owners, she spoke with everyone. After a particularly harsh winter left both ranches struggling, Maggie proposed something unusual: a shared cattle roundup and community supper. Few expected either side to agree, yet hunger and exhaustion softened attitudes. The event brought together families who had not spoken in years. By summer, the feud had largely ended. One rancher later admitted, "The lawyers failed, the sheriff failed. Maggie fed us until we remembered we were neighbors." Sometimes peace arrives at the dinner table.